Now I wanted to talk about 3 ways to start a food plot or clear a food plot. And we're going to go from pretty light to super aggressive. And pretty light meaning, as you can see all the vegetation around me and behind me right here. We have a lot of briars, goldenrod, trees, milkweed, lots of stuff coming in here. And to some, this would look very prohibitive to putting a food plot in with light equipment. This is pretty easy, and I've done this for many, many years, 20, 25 years plus, where we come into an area like this and simply last year, going into this and carving out an area where I wanted the food simply by spraying glyphosate and 2,4-D in early May, and then again in mid-June, and then again the end of July, early August at the time I planted the seed. And I've done that many times. You have great success. In fact, most of the time when I'm seeding in early August, end of July with a brassica blend or other blends that I can just throw on the ground, then I can simply throw the seed down, and then with any kind of weeds in there, I'll spray after, and really it's down to the dirt by then. You can even look right now where Dylan's at, and this is year 2 of this field, but you can see what we've done with proper weed control. Proper weed control is critical because there's a trend out there for people talking about that weeds in a food plot are greater diversity, and they're a good thing in food plots. And folks, that is terrible, terrible plan. That's no different than the farmer over here where he has beautifully manicured alfalfa and corn behind me saying that it's okay to have weeds in there. And there are food plots that are better served during the summertime and better utilized by deer with weeds in them because it offers diversity. Let's face it, just straight clover, straight alfalfa, even straight beans during the summertime can be improved when there's a little bit more browse in there and diversity of various weeds that are growing. Unfortunately, that's summertime. These summertime food plots around here don't amount to a hill of beans for your herd building and hunting ability. Now when you get down in the south, and I could say maybe Mississippi, Louisiana, you can make a case that diversity with those weeds in a food plot throughout the growing season, throughout the hunting season would be a good thing, but you don't have those frosts that we do up north. So when you have frost, it doesn't matter if it's southern Indiana, portions of Kentucky, all the way over to Iowa, Oklahoma, Kansas, and north, then those weeds die. Weeds go through their growth cycle. They have a short growth cycle in the north half of the country, and that extends even into the south areas. And those weeds that were appreciable, green, nutritious, attractive, succulent during the summer are dried out, brown, and they actually hinder your ability to have a good herd because you're removing a quality food source that they had all summer by allowing it to die, dry out, and not replacing it with something else. Weeds in the summer are completely different than weeds in the fall. You want the most amount of volume and nutrition and attraction that you can get, especially as it starts getting into September, October, November, December, and certainly through the winter time. Weeds will only take from that. And you could say like a food plot that I always point out that someone will say, well, I only have 50% weeds in there or whatever that number is. But when you have weeds in there, they're not just taking up space, they're casting shadows and shade on the crops, the nutritious crops and attractive crops you want. And then they're taking up space in the form of nutrients and volume. So what you're doing is you have 50% weeds, you really only have 10% of your targeted crop. And on a 5-acre parcel going into the fall, you have a half an acre out of 5 that's actually growing and producing for you, and that's just a big waste of time and money. So don't fall into that trap. Weed control is critical for food plots, especially even more so than the farmer. We only have a small acreage to work with when they're planting food plots. They have thousands of acres planted around here. We have a lot less, so we need to make the most of what we get. And let's face it, we're already in the red when it comes to food plots. We're not harvesting, so we need to spare no expense in making sure we have the best when it comes to bringing deer into the winter time, improving our hunt, and of course if we're doing both of those, we're going to improve our herd. And not only the quality of the herd when it comes to the nutritional level, but the makeup of the herd. But I think if you're a smart, experienced food plotter, you'll know that weed control is critical. Now the other thing we could do is just till and till and till. We're not even going to talk about that because we live in an area where you can go out in the farm fields around here with 6 inches of rain about 3 weeks ago. I have corn growing on my property from the farmer's fields. That's how eroded it was. We had a foot at a time come off the neighboring ag onto our land because of erosion. And that's what happens when you till and till over and over again, chisel plow, and open up that soil. So I don't do that at all. The fields that I'm going to show you have not been worked, plowed, tilled, disc in any way.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Don't go away. We have a really exciting announcement. I'm finally able to bring to you WHS Wildlife Blends. It's been in the works for a while, but we're offering a couple of blends right off the bat, just my favorite private blends in a brassica blend, Big Blue brassica, and a fall green blend. Both have the ability to build your soil, at the same time help you with weeds, and they're highly attractive. They're what I personally use. So after designing food plot programs for over 1,200 clients in the country, after writing about food plots, speaking about food plots, and of course, hundreds of videos on how to create food plots that best fit your needs, we're finally able to bring this to you. There are no coatings in these seed mixes, no sugar beets or other types of seed varieties that really don't mix, that have different maturity dates. These are made to actually be planted together. No ryegrass, we don't add any of that garbage to the mix. And then also no dwarf Essex rape, that's a smaller rape variety that's really cheap. We don't add that to the mix either, just to cheapen down the mix for us. And then finally, no bad mixes of cereal grain and brassica. So we're really excited about this. Again, these are my own personal mixes. I can't wait for you to try them out. It's a limited run this year. Shipping will be towards the end of July. Look forward to it on our website. The link is in the description. Thank you guys for watching. Now back to the video.
So this first method here looked like this. We sprayed 3 times. We had beautiful crops last year. I keep referring to, we've had other food plots too, in videos where I'll grab that giant radish that we had growing. It was just right up here. And those giant radishes grew in this field, and simply we threw the seed down on the soil. I didn't even use the Buckwheat Ultimate No-Till because this is full of weeds and debris. And that was last year. This is this year. You see how beautiful our field is? We have great corn here. We have strong corn, and we have a weed-free plot. So we're gonna actually be able to till. We have some open spaces in here where we'll be able to get tillage radish and improve the soil even more. And then on the end down here, we have an area of greens that we'll have. We have a little bit of weed growth growing back in there because I've sprayed the corn areas. So I'll spray that with glyphosate before I throw my seed. It's only been sprayed once this year, so that'll be a second time. And we're gonna have a big, beautiful, solid, high volume plot back there to complement this right up here. We have about 1.25 acres. I actually expanded a portion of this year. We're opening this up because it makes such a difference with holding deer in this area, and it creates our ability to grow a herd. Now you might not have, we used ATV and sprayer for this, side-by-side or ATV. You might not have a side-by-side or ATV to use. We could have done this exact same thing right here with a backpack sprayer. I used a handheld broadcaster. We're using no earthworking or tillage equipment, and we're gonna have plots that rival the best of the ag around here simply because we've controlled weeds, we've used seed varieties in the right amount of pounds per acre at the right timing so that we get the most out of our volume and the potential of that food plot space. Now last year we were limited on the amount of fertilizer we put down. We used Plot Start, which helps control the pH. It changes the biological makeup of the soil, so it allows the plants to uptake the nutrients without putting lime down. And then we also use Plot Boost to give further nutrition to the plants when they're growing, when they're actually green. We put nitrogen on our brassica portion. So those radishes you see, we put 75 pounds of nitrogen per acre on those at about 4 weeks of growth when we had rain coming. You have to do it when the leaves are dry so that you don't put nitrogen dust on those leaves and burn it with that moisture. So you put it on when the leaves are dry, rain's coming, because if you don't get rain right away, within a week, 10 days of 80-degree weather, you lose about 50 to 70% of your nitrogen. It just volatilize into the air. So it actually dissipates and it disappears, doesn't go into the ground then. So you need that rain on it. The bottom line, we did a lot without using a lot of equipment, handheld tools, have beautiful plots, and I've been doing that for a very long time. It's very easy to do, but you have to control the weeds. I'm seeing problems right now where someone just this morning said, yeah, I'm not picking on you, I'm not gonna put any names out there, but someone who comments a lot, and I want them to do their best, but they have ferns coming into their buckwheat mix. And they asked me what to do, and really the only answer at that point is to kill it all and plant like we did last year. You can plant by throwing seeds onto the ground if you're using seeds like brassica. Brassica is a family, includes rape, turnip, and radish. That's that combination we're typically using. It includes canola, kale, and those are low value. I don't like those in the mix. Purple top turnips, forage turnips, various types of forage rape. I like to limit my use of dwarf Essex rape. Tillage radish is great, but you can throw that right on the soil in most areas. I even did it in the UP of Michigan with a lot of sandy soil, and when you do that before rains, you get great germination. Brassica seeds germinate really quickly. So does clover. Clover works really well in chicory. Rye, wheat, oats are okay. Peas are okay. It takes a lot of rain to open up peas, but corn, beans aren't that great. So you have to be really mindful of what kind of seeds you're putting down. I always choose to top dress my non-brassica portion, whether I'm using buckwheat or peas, tillage radish, whatever it might be. When it gets into that Labor Day time, early September, I'm using that rye or wheat to top dress at 100, 200 pounds per acre, just to fill in any holes and offer an increase in diversity and nutrition as those other green crops are starting to get eaten down. But bottom line is you can do that all with a hand spreader, ATV, actually backpack sprayer, and they have some great plots. And then you see year two here. The soil was great. We actually improved it with a lot of tillage radish out here and buckwheat. You can still see some leftover buckwheat growing in here in the field, right here. That'll get killed out by the first frost, but then at the same time, it'll just keep growing in here. It won't compete with the corn too much. There's not a lot of it. It's kind of cool to see it in here, but it shows you how quick of a spring we had this year. Our spring was, as I'm stepping and ruining corn here, but we had such a quick spring here that buckwheat germinated, and then we never had another frost. Usually there's 2 or 3 frosts after that first germination, and it'll kill those type of plants that shouldn't be carrying over to the following year. Same with oats. But we just had such a quick spring here. It was cold for a long time, and then bam, it was 80s and sunny, and we never had another frost. But you see how clean this field is now. And so we had the ability, we had Brandon come in here from First Choice Food Plots, and he drilled in this corn. I actually sprayed the corn last week with 2,4-D and Roundup, about the same time the farmers were doing it around here on their corn. And we cleaned up any kind of weed debris that we had in here, with the exception of some of this buckwheat that I didn't really mind staying. And we didn't have a lot of weeds. You can see a patch back in here. It's a small yellowish green patch, but that's how little weeds we had in here from the following year. Here's actually a tillage radish carryover from last year. So we usually don't have that, but again, it was such a fast spring. So you can see a little bit of weeds right here. We actually had a burn pile back here. We had a lot of logs and debris that we took care of. You can see how well this corn is actually doing right here. This burn pile is actually pretty big, and you see how the corn's just doing the same right through the middle of it. So we'll plant that back half in greens. It was very wild around here when we started. We actually did not pick up any of the gray dogwood brush debris that was out here. It all just turns into dust into the ground that first year very, very fast. So this was an area that probably hadn't been planted. It was old pasture, but if it had been planted, it had been at least 12 to 15 years. We're gonna step over to another area where we used another method to clear this out with great success. And then we'll finish by looking at areas where we've used heavy equipment and why we cleared the way we did, and where we put that debris, how that affects hunting, how it affects the deer use. And I hope you can take from one of these 3 methods, apply it to your own. Let's go look at the next spot. Well, this is plot number 2. And I want you guys to stick around. We only have 3 plots to show you. So we're almost to number 3 here, where we get into the big bulldozer and excavator, and we'll show you why we cleared it and what we did there. But this is kind of an upgrade from the last one. The last one is the way I've cleared most food plots going back for a very long time, where I'm spraying 3 times. I'm starting with even brush like this sometimes. Because this was so brushy in here, we had a lot of trees. We cleared this with a chainsaw and a brush hog. Brush hog on the back of a tractor, 24 horse, just a 4-foot brush hog. And we mowed down a lot of this gray dogwood here, briars, goldenrod. It was very thick. If you just look around this edge right here, what you see is what was out here. And we wanted to clear about an acre, a little over an acre. We got a later start on this too. So we were clearing this when the grass was already growing, all this was green, and we simply mowed it down to the ground and followed up immediately with a spraying of Roundup and 2,4-D, 2 quarts per acre of glyphosate and 1 pint per acre of 2,4-D. It's a standard ag mix. We sprayed this on here, and we got a good kill right away. Especially when you're cutting a lot of vegetation, small brush. You're opening up that stump down at the base that immediately goes into the root system and you get a good kill. But there's still a lot of weeds in here, a lot of seed banks. So what we did is we did that. This hasn't been planted. It was pasture for decades. And we came in here and Brandon from First Choice Food Plot drilled corn in here. There's areas we don't have corn in. And what I'm going to do in those areas is plant tillage radish. It's more of a late season food source, but it's really good at improving the soil and avoiding compaction. We have a lot of stumps down here. We've cleared about 60 to 80 trees with a chainsaw. So between the chainsaw and brush hog, we cleared this down. We sprayed it one time, planted the corn. And what was really nice about drilling the corn is I was able to follow up with another shot of glyphosate and 2,4-D. You can spray that on some corn, not all corn, but ours was glyphosate and 2,4-D ready. And we were able to spray it on there when the weeds were starting to compete with the corn. They were getting up there about 10, 12 inches. And that's when you get the best kill. You can actually see out here the kind of kill we have on all these weeds. They're all turning brown right now. Everything's wilting behind me. Briars, hardwood regeneration, whatever it was, it's starting to turn brown. Now what I really want to point out to you guys is it doesn't matter if you're spraying or you're coming in and brush hogging something like this and then you're spraying and controlling the weeds that initially after brush hogging. It seems like there'll be a lot of debris. You can look at all this brush around here. There is a lot of debris, but because a lot of this debris is moisture laden, especially all these leaves, the grasses, the weeds, when that moisture is gone, it turns into nothing. You can imagine these gray dogwood whips here. There's like a small bush or small tree. When you cut that down, there's a lot of green and there's a lot of moisture in there, but as soon as that moisture is gone, it starts to dissipate down to nothing. You can see this right here. This is how much soil we have out here. We have a lot of soil exposed in the ground. Seeds can get down here really well. And you can see the soil's actually not too bad. We sprayed this with Plot Start. We've sprayed the chemicals on it. Brandon applied nitrogen, but we haven't used any other fertilizer out here. We'll use nitrogen and Plot Start for the actual greens that'll be down here on this side. But other than that, this is pretty pain-free. There's a product we're using from Deer Grow too that's called Plot Till. And for soils that are compacted or older soil like this that have been settling for decades and not used, then we spray that. It helps break up the soil. It's a heavily concentrated mix. I believe it's 8 ounces per acre. So we get 16-ounce bottles and they're good for 2 acres. We'll spray that out here. That'll help improve the soil quality, aerate it a little bit. And bottom line is, with a brush hog, a late start, you know, we're shooting this the end of June right now. You could do this on a property, go in here, brush hog it, spray it right away. You don't want it overtaken by, you know, again, 50% weeds means there's 90% weeds. There's only 10% volume of your food plots. You're paying a lot of money for that seed, get the most of it, and you'll be rewarded in the fall. Who cares about the summertime? You're not really helping the deer herd during the summertime. Don't believe that. There's several times more, unless you get down the arid southwest, portions like that where it's really almost desert dry during the summer and they have nothing. That's a little bit different, where their time of plenty in Texas might be the winter time, late fall. That's the opposite in most areas of the country. So really important, they just grind it down, spray it again, and we're going to end up spraying this over here. This is the second time for this entire field, and that's going to be it. We're going to put our buckwheat down here pretty soon. We'll let that buckwheat grow. We'll plant into that. We probably won't have any weeds at the end, so we won't need to spray, other than if we want to spray glyphosate at 2 quarts per acre to keep the buckwheat down and not competing. Those older stalks standing back up, we can just smash them down completely. We can plant big seeds into it. We can plant small seeds, but with a brush hog, in the addition to that brush hog, we're able to get something established, even getting a late start. Like if you're right now watching this early July, mid-July, you can still brush hog this down, get a couple sprayings on it, and then plant something around Labor Day. And anywhere in the country, you could do that in later. So you get a couple kills, really good soil exposure because there's not much here. And starting with a brush hog and a sprayer is a great way to get a plot going without a lot of equipment. Even if you rent a tractor from your local rental dealer with a brush hog on it and just grind it down. Don't worry, you don't have to worry about discs and tillers. ATV discs, that right there means unless it's been worked already or it's completely down to soil and a little wet, you're not going to get any good tillage and ground exposure in the first place. I could have ridden over this all I wanted. I would have probably burned up the ATV or whatever I pulled with it, because it's just going to keep skipping over the top and getting caught. You're not going to actually break down through that sod base without killing it. And that's what we did. So we don't plan to ever plow this, ever disc this, ever till it, and we'll continue to have really good crops and improving the soil. We use a lot of buckwheat rotation during the summertime, heavy tillage radish in my blends going into the fall. So we're always improving the soil and changing the soil and adding nutrients back in. And that's a great way to do it. We're not focusing on just purely soil builders that do nothing for the deer herd. We're not focusing on purely just removing from the soil like corn every year. We're actually planting a blend that helps the deer herd, helps us build a great deer herd, and improves the soil at the same time. Look for that balance, and in anything in life, balance is usually key. We're going to go on to the next food plot, and where we used a lot of dozer and a lot of heavy clearing to show you guys how to do it right when it comes to clearing land with a dozer, because there's a lot of ways to do it wrong. And oh, by the way, if you like these hats, we're going to have these hats. Everyone asks for hats. They have for years. We typically don't sell them. We're starting to on the website. So we have this design and another one. Of course, people that purchase the web classes get a certain hat too. But we're going to have hats. Maybe we'll start selling something else, but we're definitely going to have hats on the website for you guys out there. So watch for them soon. And if you've ever wanted one of our hats, that's a good way to get it. They'll be out soon. So I wanted to let you know. Let's head off to the next plot. Well, this is the third food plot that we've worked on here over the last couple of years, and this was the most recent too, where this is one we had a bulldozer and an excavator in here, and we had a lot of early successional growth and more pasture land growth back to this back terrace where Dylan is standing. It flattens out right here, so then it drops off, and you can tell they used to farm back here at some point, because there's a series of terraces that come down into the woods. There's actually another one right down here close, so they had attempted to carve this out pretty far back in the woods. And they probably saw that there's too much erosion, and that's happening even right now in the fields. And it's interesting, you see like 5 or 6 years ago, where out in the fields, they're planting further out into the field and leaving this early successional growth and grasses on the neighbor's farmland. And then they've taken that over and farmed it the last couple of years, because the aerial photos didn't go back that far, 2019, 2018. And now they're farming it, and there's huge erosion. And so I mentioned earlier, we're getting corn growing on our property this year because that we didn't plant, where it's coming off the ag fields at seed and washing onto our property. And so, but this is a dozer. You know, this is a dozer and excavator. Not everyone has the means to do that. We wanted to expand this food plot. We added about an acre here, maybe slightly more. And what we did is we just went into this woods and we went all the way around. That's very important when you're clearing land like this, that you understand that you don't want to pile logs and debris all the way around this plot. A lot of times I want people to hide in a corner, hide it off the edge, 5 or 6 piles. You never want to windrow that brush, because it becomes very obtrusive to bucks. We get a lot of bucks that come onto the land for the first time for the year in middle of September, middle of October. Last thing we want them to do is come into an area like this that's windrowed with logs, to see that obstruction, and they will avoid those. They do in most areas. When you get into some of the low hunting pressure states, big woods areas, and you're clearing timber, it's not as much of a concern. But when you're in these areas where you have high hunter numbers, deer aren't used to seeing those obstructions. They want free, clean edge for deer to come in and out. You can see this edge. You can see Jared, our dozer operator, how he came to this area right here and just sculpted it down out of the fields. It drops off, and we have this clean edge, and this clean edge extends all the way around. Well, we had to put the debris somewhere. Sometimes you can do this in conjunction with a logging operation, so you're actually taking timber off, makes it a lot easier. We just cleared another plot that had a huge pile of logs in the middle of it. We got Jared to doze those off. Last year we cleared out a water hole. We actually broke it open, let the water rush out. It was in a bad spot. So just because it's a good water hole, it's not a good water hole if it's holding water in a bad spot. So it's not a good water hole then. We got rid of that, and that's where we put all the stumps. He actually had enough soil. He leveled it right over the top of it. And then we were able to actually expand the food plot in that location. This right here, you can see very free and clear behind me. But we had to put the logs and debris somewhere. So if you go over here, this is where we tucked those logs, over here in the corner. This is an area we don't expect deer to move in and out. We expect them to move out here. This is our bulk of our cover. That's going to another food plot down there. All these trails go straight to it. So this area right here strategizing with Dylan. You know, I talked about putting one of our redneck blinds or ladder stand behind that brush pile over there. Dylan said, why not tuck it behind this oak right here in this corner? We're already going to close off this area in front of the brush by softening it with heavy switchgrass, some shrubs from big rock trees, maybe some silky willows, maybe hybrid willows back in so it softens this log pile. We don't want deer to come out and see this log pile. It'll be a part of the woods in the future. It'd just be a great spot for rabbits. But a really good spot that we can put a redneck there, access out behind switchgrass and willows. And we're very fortunate here because once we're down here in this little valley, and you see a lot of the food plot is up on this ridge system and over. This is a point going out into the woods. So while we can get up in a redneck at 10 feet and we can cover the majority of this food plot and get a good shot at everything, once we're down and we're low in here, unless those deer are immediately right in front of us, they're not going to know that we're sneaking in and out. And that's key to if we put a blind anywhere, whether it's right there behind that pile on the corner here. We have some choices. We have to be able to get in and out without spooking deer. Now we're very fortunate here because our food plots represent holding plots, meaning they come through here, they hold till dark, and then they're out in the ag fields after dark. So it makes it really nice, established pattern. They're moving out of here and then we can slip on out of here whichever way we think is best on the outside. And the outside of these plots, we have 20 to 30 feet of switchgrass already growing on the all approach sides. We even have on this side, we have 4 rows of John's HD screening from Northwoods Whitetails running all the way this entire length for about 300 yards over to the other small food plot, so that this entire area is walled off and screened off. So it's very secure back here. If we hunt it again, it's got to be very hidden. We have to be able to get in and out without spooking deer. But in the end, this area right here, we push the logs to the side, push the logs to that corner over there. We have this whole free edge, about 175 yards worth of edge. It's free and clear. And that allows the deer to come in and out, not feel like they're obstructed. Both these piles are tucked around corners to where when you're over on that edge, you can't see the pile. When you're on this edge, you can't look over to the pile because you have this little point that comes out. That was by design. You have probably, just guessing, I would say that we have probably 15% of area that's logged off and then 85% that's free and clear. And then the areas that are logged, we're hiding in a corner, we're putting switchgrass and trying to soften that a lot more and make it a little cleaner. Even around this edge right here, we're gonna plant all the way to the edge this year, and then we're gonna spray, make sure that we've controlled weeds, because these weeds will start popping here. Never been a food plot here, farm field or anything, at least for decades. And when this vegetation comes in, those weeds, that seed bank that's in here in rootstock, we're gonna kill it immediately, and we'll probably kill it one more time before we plant. We'll plant all the way to the edge so that next year we can put a 6-foot bank of switchgrass all the way around this inside rim. So this food plot will be completely encased in switchgrass. Bucks that are standing down in the woods then have to come out in the plot to see if anything's out here. They can't just look from 100 yards in, see there's no deer out here and keep moving on during the rut. Very important when you're clearing land, you really think about where you're putting the logs and how obtrusive you're making your outside edges with a dozer and an excavator. Don't let anyone tell you you want to create an opening here because the stand's going to go here. The mature bucks just don't follow it. I've seen it dozens of times on properties, especially there's a big habit of people doing that in Minnesota, Wisconsin, places of Michigan. I see that often, Pennsylvania, this whole upper Midwest area, and you don't want to do that. Now, we've cleared this. This was cleared about, let's say, just guessing, we were done about June 26th, June 27th, right around there. So what I'm really doing is I want to wait for some weeds to start popping up. You can't kill weeds unless they popped up. It'll be briars, goldenrod. There could be weeds that haven't been here for 30 years because it was back in the woods, but they're going to pop up. That seed bank is still in the soil. So I'm going to wait, I would guess, till middle of July, 3rd week of July, we'll get some weeds popping up in here. And I want to see some good weeds and some moisture coming in. We'll kill those weeds, and then by mid-August, we might get another batch of weeds, 3rd week of August. And so in an area like this where I'm clearing, instead of putting the normal brassica blend on one side, a green blend on the other like I like to do, I'll probably put a super mix that I call it, where I'm cheating a little bit later for the brassica, just a couple weeks, meaning 3rd week of August, right around there. I'd plant a brassica blend heavy with tillage radish so we can improve the soil and break up the soil, avoid any compaction. So I'd have that brassica blend. I'd cut that in half overall. So if our blend is 8 pounds per acre, we'd cut that down to 4 pounds per acre. And that means I have a half acre of seed that I can add to that. What I'd probably add to that would be buckwheat. Buckwheat normally you're planting about 40 to 50 pounds per acre. So if I want to take a quarter, 25%, that means that I could add approximately 12 pounds of buckwheat to that brassica blend. And then from there I can use peas. If I want to do a quarter acre of peas, that's 75 pounds of peas per acre. But I'm going to use something green and leafy. The peas are legume, they put nitrogen back into the soil. The buckwheat is an incredible soil builder. So is the heavy amount of tillage radish in the brassica blend. So I'm adding all that together. I'm getting a good early season attraction and blend and diversity. And then I'll top dress that entire thing, especially if the deer are eating it down or it's growing slowly, in middle of September with at least 200 pounds of rye per acre. Rye, because it's less soil discriminant. So in the meantime, I'm going to put the deer grow plot till on it, which will help avoid compaction, make those nutrients available to the plants. I'm going to put plot start on it, and then afterwards I'll put plot boost on it. I'll hit it with nitrogen because a lot of those green leafy plants and the tillage radish and buckwheat want that nitrogen. So does the rye later, and so that'll give me a really good healthy bank. I'll put that on this outer layer. We already have corn on the old plot right up here. On this down side of this old plot, there's about a 50-60 foot gap. So I would guesstimate the new portion of this food plot actually begins, you can actually see the soil change in color, but the new portion begins about right here and then down to the woods all the way around. So we have a good layer in here up to the corn, and that bellies out even more as we go around. And that's where I'll probably put a full brassica blend. We'll have more of a green super mix down here for that new growth. Seeds we can just throw on top of the soil and expect good germination with moisture. But it's not about, you know, what we plant. That's a big part of it, but we have to match those planting conditions. I'm not going to till this. I'm not going to disc this. I'm not going to plow this ever. I don't see any need to. I can do that with the actual plants that I put into the ground and that growth. I don't have to worry about erosion out here, soil drying out. I don't have to worry about drying out this top soil and this top layer of good nutrients that are here for the plants. So I can have a great plot here in the future. I can have a great plot here just this year right now, even though this wasn't dosed till June 26th. Even if this was done right now and it was finished in this condition and it was, let's say, September 15th, September 20th, I could still throw that blend right here even though I don't get a good kill, because those plants are going to immediately germinate. It'll take a while for that weed bank to kick in, and I'll get good growth going into October and a really good plot. We have different stages. We're able to plant corn up here on the old portion. We'll put a green blend in here, probably just straight brassica from Northwoods Whitetail all the way around, and then we'll have this lower area of the green blend so we can have a great plot. Now it's just a matter of, do we put a blind here, a ladder stand here, one of Jack's ladder stands for family tradition. We have a few of those coming, and or we can stick a redneck back here. I'm not really sure, but I know it's going to relate to this end around this wood pile. We can't get into the other one. This is an area where we don't have as many deer coming out right here because of a steep ravine, so they're not coming out right here. We're over there, it's a little bit flatter, it's closer to bedding, so we get deer coming out there. We'd have to be 150 yards away from the plot on that edge, where this is one, because of the terrain back here, they don't come out here on this end. They come out really good on the side. So if we had a blind right here, they'd be coming out 20, 30 yards on this edge. We'd put a mock scrape, put a camera on it, and we'll show you what's coming out here. We already have some decent bucks. You can see we left an apple tree standing right up here. It's a really good apple tree. We have some stumps up here, kind of a combined effort. Brandon from First Choice Food Plots is out here. He planted the corn. He also got these trees off to the side with his front end loader. We'll remove those stumps next year so we have a clean plot. And but you can see how this just starts to expand and open up back here. I'm really excited. Dylan, when he came back here and saw it for the first time just 20 minutes ago, he said, wow, you know, when we went around the corner, it just opens up like crazy compared to what it was. We had several trees in here, like I said, that were sucking up nutrients, throwing shade out here. So we're gonna get a lot more growth here. And like I said, we don't have to get up very high right over there, and we're gonna be able to see this whole plot. It'd be really cool for late season bow hunting, gun hunting. We just have to make sure wherever that's at over there, the number one concern with putting a blinder stand over here is that we can get in and out without spooking deer. That's most important. If we can't do it right here, we have to move it back. That's just a black and white thing. We have to be able, and we'll use that big log pile behind Dylan over there. But those are 3 ways, whether you're clearing with a dozer or an excavator, making sure your edges are clear, clean, and then how you plant after that's pretty easy. Starting with 3 sprayings throughout the summertime. People don't like chemicals, but for that first year, you can have incredibly successful plots. I look at some of these weedy garbage plots online and people talking about weeds are good, and I just laugh because they're just wasting resources and time. They destroy their ability to actually influence or herd to have a good hunt during the fall, and I feel bad for them at the same time because a lot of them are misguided. They're getting bad information out there, which is the internet, of course. And then there's the other part, start with a brush hog spray. But those 3 ways that you can plant are very, very successful. And you can see the timing is so different. We can start with spraying in early May around here, and end of April, mid-April, depending if you're located further south and you're getting that first green up. Your first spraying is always the most important because you're eliminating future weed debris. So as soon as those weeds are 8, 10, 12 inches tall, you're spraying them again, spraying them a 3rd time. Don't ever think you can just get away with 1 or 2 sprayings. That's not going to work. Of course, the brush hogging and then doing it this way. And doing it this way, you can do this all the way to the end of September and you're still going to get a good way. The spraying, you want to start early. Brush hogging, you can start more middle of summer. And then opening up the soil like this, we're going to be fortunate. We'll have time for a couple kills. But we could actually take this, and like I said, we can make this around here in Wisconsin. We could have started this the end of September if we wanted. So 3 different timings, 3 different methods. They all work the same, just a matter of when you start, what kind of equipment you have at your disposal. We've used all 3 in the last year with huge success. Can't wait to bring this hunt on this plot, especially this year, let alone some of the other areas, as we continue to develop our farm here in Minnesota, and hope you can take something back home to your own lands and apply it for this year, because this stuff does not take years. It takes 1 year or less to change your herd and your hunt for decades to come. Folks, I want to make sure you check out my web class video series, whether it's how to design your food plot program or how to design your property in general. And we have a new one coming out that'll be how to hunt the rut. But these bucks back here are a testament. Some of these bucks go back to 93. They're even in different states. I urge you to check out those web classes so that you can help yourself, help your land, help your hunt. The link is in the description. And also for those that have tried them out, I encourage you to offer some feedback in the comments below. Thank you.